Good evening. Welcome to election night at the Oklahoman. I'm Angie Bruss.
And I'm Dave Morris. We've been following the major storylines of the 2008 election all night.
As expected, Oklahoma's vote for the presidency was declared early. Oklahoma typically votes Republican. In 2004, President Bush carried all 77 counties. Tonight, Senator John McCain won about 70% of Oklahoma's votes.
And Obama doing very well nationwide, looking at the election returns, which you can find on newsok.com. Joining us in the studio tonight is Ed Kelly, editor of the Oklahoman. Ed, any surprises in your opinion about how Oklahomans voted in the presidential race?
Dave, not at all. Oklahoma was never in doubt, and it's seen by the fact that neither presidential campaign spent any time or any money in Oklahoma, not just recently, but throughout 2008. You know, Oklahoma has voted Republican in every presidential election for the last 40 years, since 1968. And there was never any doubt that that was not going to change 40 years later in 2008. Just a few minutes ago, I spoke with Chris Castile and Mark Green in our Washington Bureau for their perspective. It was a good night for John McCain in Oklahoma, but many other states McCain hoped to carry, he did not. Specifically in Pennsylvania, both McCain and Sarah Palin spent a lot of time there, but it ended up going Democrat as it usually does. But it looks like he's lost Ohio as well, which no Republican in modern times has lost it and still made it to the White House. Was losing Ohio a fatal blow to the McCain campaign?
Well, I think it probably was. You know, they had to spend a lot of time in Pennsylvania because they didn't have a lot of other options in other states that were outside their own bubble of states. But Ohio is a killer. You know, all the exit polling showed the late breakers and all the surge of new voters there all went for Obama. So it's definitely a fatal blow for McCain.
Yeah, clearly every battleground state that he lost closed off a path to victory, and Ohio is huge.
What about Barack Obama's night so far that has surprised you, if anything?
Well, I don't know, Ed, about, you know, how surprised all these polls, you know, showed Obama ahead or at least winning. But, you know, when it comes down to it, it may not be surprising, but it's still amazing. You know, here's a guy 4 years ago, hardly anybody had ever heard of, except that, you know, he'd given a great rousing speech at the Democratic National Convention, went on to win that Senate seat in Illinois. But who would have expected what he had, you know, what he did in the Democratic primary and what he's done tonight, winning some of these states, but possibly he's going to win a state in every region of the country. Again, may not be surprising, but you got to say it's amazing. It's historic.
I agree with Chris. I mean, just the precision of the campaign. They were just a machine all year long, really, and taking advantage of the natural lay of the land this year for Democrats. I mean, they didn't make any big mistakes, hardly made any mistakes at all, really. And you know, as Chris said, winning places like Ohio, you know, where
right.
No Republican has lost in a long time, has won the presidency. That's huge.
Chris, Mark, thank you for your time.
Ed, the race for the White House is just one of the storylines we've been following all night. Let's talk about a few of the other races tonight.
Jim Inhofe has retained his seat, defeating Andrew Rice and Stephen Wallace. He spoke tonight at the Republican Watch Party.
Clinically, because when you look and you see the type of race that's going on, and you've already seen quite a disparity between the polling numbers and the final votes in different states. And so I'm looking at some of these 6 critical states, and I believe it's going to happen. Now, you may have missed it during the introduction, but one of the good things about this is the only person who's senior to me in the Senate Armed Services Committee is John McCain. And, of course, if he's in the White House, it gets him out of the way so I can be chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee.
Ed, your thoughts about Inhofe's win?
Well, Angie, it was a comfortable win for Jim Inhofe, if not an overwhelming win. His Democratic challenger, Andrew Rice, ran a good race, even though, like the McCain campaign, this one was really never in doubt. This is the 4th time that Jim Inhofe has gone before Oklahoma voters as a Senate candidate, and he's won all 4 races. By the time he finishes his 6-year term, he will have done 20 years in the United States Senate. I think the history we may have seen tonight is, though, at Jim Inhofe in his early 70s, will this be the last time he goes before voters in a statewide race in Oklahoma? If so, he's obviously gone out a winner.
Ed, I'm looking at newsok.com right now. I clicked on elections, the race-by-race results, and the 5 incumbents in the U.S. representative races appear to have easily won their races. Any surprises?
No, Dave, no surprises there at all either. all 5 candidates had token opposition, even though 4 of the 5 members are Republicans, and this certainly was not a year for Republican incumbents in the House. But the fact that all 4 won, I think, is testimony to the fact that they're very well beloved by their constituents. What's most interesting about 2008 tonight, with 2 of the 4 Republicans, Mary Fallon and Tom Cole, will this be the last time they run for a House race from Oklahoma? Will either one of them have interest in the gubernatorial race in 2010 when it's a wide open race?
And in the Corporation Commissioner race, Jeff Cloud appears to have defeated Charles Gray, but the race between Dana Murphy and Jim Roth is pretty tight.
Well, Angie, this was the most competitive race by far statewide this year between Dana Murphy and Jim Roth. It got pretty nasty at the end with a battle of the airways, as these things often do. Upwards of $1 million, perhaps close to $2 million spent in this particular race. And right now, not surprisingly, it's too close to call. This is sort of emblematic of the fact that it was close all the month of October. And it's not surprising we're seeing the same thing here at 10 o'clock, 3 hours after the polls closed.
Ed Kelly, editor of the Oklahoman, thanks for your time and analysis.
And we have had updates throughout tonight from the Democratic and Republican watch parties.
The Oklahoman's Ken Raymond filed this report from the Skirvin Hotel in the Democratic Party. He spoke, or yelled at, it was pretty loud there, with former Oklahoma Governor David Walters.
Hi, this is Ken Raymond reporting to you from the Democratic Watch Party at the Skirvin Hotel. With me now is former Governor David Walters. David Walters, good to have you.
Thank you very much, Ken. Glad to be here.
It's a pretty exciting night.
We don't, as Democrats, get to have this much fun this often, but we're going to take full advantage of it in this great victory tonight for Barack Obama.
It's early, but how do you think that the Oklahoma Democrats are going to do?
Well, you know, it's a different story in Oklahoma. We may win the national championship for the largest percentage for McCain. And so it makes you wonder why what Oklahomans know that the rest of the nation doesn't know. But, you know, we're probably going to lose the Senate, might be my guess. So the Republicans get to have the House and the Senate in Oklahoma. And my hope is that when that responsibility falls on them, that they'll govern as well as they campaign, and that will drop so many of these social, distracting, moralistic issues and get on with education improvements, jobs, and health care, and really get something done. So I challenge them to really make the most of their time and control in the Oklahoma legislature.
And you can find complete results from every race, including those mentioned by Walters, online at newsok.com. Simply click on the result you wish to view. All right, also a thanks to Mark Green for chatting online all night, answering our questions, and thanks to Mark and Chris Castile for their updates from the Washington, D.C. Bureau, along with their analysis.
And a big thanks to our expert guest tonight, Bob Rader, Executive Vice President of Capital West Securities, William Hoke from Crow and Dunlevy, and Renzai Stone, President and CEO of Saxon PR.
That does it for us tonight. Be sure to pick up a copy of Wednesday's Oklahoman for complete election coverage, and you can find more stories and videos online at newsok.com.
See ya.